Hello and welcome to Network Africa on Channels Television. I'm Anne Nwawadu. The European Union is calling for an investigation into the reported massacre of around 100 people in Burkina Faso. This attack, which took place in the village of Zaongo on the 6th of November, has been condemned by the United States. The statement by the EU's foreign policy chief, Joseph Borrell, partly reads, around 100 civilians, including women and children, were killed in a massacre. It's still unclear who is behind this attack. However, Mr. Borrell has called on Burkina Faso's military junta to shed light on the circumstances of these deaths. 2 Ugandan soldiers have been sacked for cowardice advice in an attack at an African Union base in Somalia. The Ugandan court found Majors Zadok Abor and John Oluka guilty following their weakness. It was gathered that the soldiers ran away after Islamist fighters Al-Shabaab stormed Bulumara base in the south of the Somalian capital, Mogadishu. The attack that led to the death of at least 50 Ugandan soldiers, the deadliest for the African Union force, since it's launched a new offensive against Al-Shabaab last year. Uganda is part of the African Union force helping Somalia's government fight Al-Shabaab, an Al-Qaeda affiliate. The country's president, Yoweri Museveni, has criticized his military for its response to that attack. Let's shift gears now to humanitarian crisis going on in Sudan, where continuous fighting between the Sudanese army and the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, is still taking a hard toll on civilians there. The United Nations humanitarian coordinator in Sudan, Clementine Nkweta Salami, says that millions have fled their homes since the conflict began in April, adding that 25 million people are in need of urgent humanitarian assistance at the moment.
Sudan's civilians have suffered through almost 7 months of intense conflict and a humanitarian tragedy that only grows bleaker by the day. As the fighting continues to rage, over half of the population, 25 million people, require assistance and protection. More than 6 million people have fled their homes and are displaced inside Sudan or in neighboring countries. The statement of commitments adopted in Jeddah earlier in the week by the parties to the conflict in Sudan marks a moment of truth for the country. We owe it to the people of Sudan to ensure that the promises made by the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces to protect civilians and provide unimpeded humanitarian access are kept. I will continue to call for all the parties to Sudan's conflict to abide by their obligations under international human rights and humanitarian law. This is not optional. These attacks should cease and those responsible held accountable.
Over in Côte d'Ivoire, where self-exiled former Prime Minister Guillaume Soro has announced he will be returning back home to the country. Mr. Soro, who took himself into exile in 2019, says that he plans to return home despite having 2 criminal convictions. He said in his words, "I wanted to go back because it was hard to live far away from my ancestral land of Africa." He adds that he wants to contribute to the reconciliation of the country. Back in 2021, an Ivorian court sentenced Mr. Soro in absentia to life imprisonment for undermining national security. The previous year, he had been sentenced to 20 years on charges relating to the embezzlement of public funds. Both convictions happened while Mr. Soro was in self-imposed exile, which began in December 2019. The conversation on the recent wave of coup d'etat in Africa is continuing as the ECOWAS Commission President Omar Toure has reiterated the bloc's stance on using all options available to ensure that constitutional order is restored. He was speaking on our Foreign Affairs program, Diplomatic Channel, on the military takeovers in Niger, Mali, Guinea, and in Burkina Faso.
We have tried various procedures and various approaches in previous situations. The leaders feel the coup in Niger is one coup too many. Niger was doing relatively okay with regard to security. It was on the verge of taking off in terms of socioeconomic development with a relative degree of stability. Now, having a country that, a president that was elected less than 2 years ago, removed overnight, was just too much for the region. And the leaders felt this needs to be stopped because we cannot have a region where elected heads of state can be removed overnight and expect a region which is at peace with itself. And this is why the leaders have decided to put all options on the table. And this certainly under the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the leaders are determined to ensure that constitutional order is restored in all the member states of the region, because it's only through constitutionally elected government that we can work together to address the insecurity that the region faces. For Mali, as you know, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea, we have concluded an agreement, a transitional agreement with them, and we are working on the various milestones provided for in the agreement. So there we don't have major problems. There might be a few issues that we need to get together to address. Of course, Niger has come to torpedo the cooperation we have been enjoying with all the three countries, but we are confident that we will be able to get back on track in those three countries.
To catch the full interview, please watch Diplomatic Channel today on DSTV at 11:30 p.m. and on Sky Channel 515 in the United Kingdom. And to other stories now, the Saudi government has signed deals worth $580 million with African countries in its first ever Saudi-Africa summit in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. While there is already existing billions of dollars in Saudi investment on the African continent, leaders want improved ties with many other areas. Our foreign affairs correspondent, Amarachi Ubani, who's in Riyadh, reports.
Leaders from 54 African countries, including Nigeria, have held talks with their Saudi counterparts on further investments in Africa, a day after Saudi authorities made major announcement on 15 loan projects on the continent through the Saudi Fund for Development.
We were successful yesterday to sign 14 loan agreements with 12 countries with an amount of $580 million US. They will be financing 14 projects in the next 5 years. His Royal Highness announced $5 billion US to finance development projects in the African continent, and it will be over the next 7 years. And the Saudi Fund for Development will be financing the priority development projects in the recipient countries in the African continent. So we are planning with our partner countries in Africa in order to finance their priority projects over the next 7 years.
Even though Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was in the session on Friday, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Tuga, reiterated the President's call for foreign investments and how it fits in with the Saudi vision of 2030.
Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 of post-hydrocarbon smart cities and Africa's Agenda 2063 of inclusive development provide a clear path to a future of peace and prosperity for developing countries. The African Continental Free Trade Area of 876 million talented youth is the political economy of the future, with Saudi Arabia as a partner for joint development and growth. Under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's leadership, Nigeria is committed to attracting business and investment by ensuring policy predictability, secure property rights, and effectiveness of contracts.
He also joined calls for humanitarian ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war and reaffirmed support for a two-state solution to the issue between Israel and Palestine.
Also reaffirm our support for a peaceful resolution of the Palestine-Israeli conflict anchored on the two-state solution in line with UN resolutions and the Arab Peace Plan. Nigeria and Africa share similar visions of durable peace in the region.
There have been representatives from across Africa, from the ECOWAS, from the African Union, each of them hoping to talk about, issues that are important to them, especially as regards the economy of Africa. From here in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, Amarachi Ubani, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has once again reiterated Nigeria's readiness to welcome Saudi investors into the country. He said this at the Saudi-Nigeria Roundtable meeting in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. At that forum, he assured members of the Saudi government that change is coming from Africa and the change is right here, and that his administration is out to correct whatever misgivings they may have had about the country.
I'm Mohammed Umarubagu. I'm the governor of
Nigeria and Saudi Arabia headed towards ever closer ties, especially after the Saudi-Nigeria Roundtable meeting held on the sidelines of the Saudi-Africa Summit this weekend in Riyadh. President Bola Tinubu wasted no time reassuring his host that Nigeria is the best place to do business in Africa, saying the elephantitis that plagued the nation's development and progress is cured, and Nigeria remains at the heart of Africa, serious and dynamic.
The change is right here. Perception of Nigeria has been that of layback, corruption, and giant of Africa with elephantiasis. But that is gone. The realization of that hope is here. The belief is here. The change of the perception is right here. Forget the categorization of corruption. Forget it. It won't happen no more.
His words in conversations with the Saudi government officials leading up to the roundtable meeting in Riyadh did the convincing for the kingdom's Minister of Investment, Khalid Al-Khalid Al-Fali, who praised both countries' sense of visionary leadership.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we know that under His Excellency President Tinubu's leadership, Nigeria has embarked on the country's boldest economic reform agenda in decades. Very much mirroring what is happening in Saudi Arabia under the leadership of His Majesty King Salman and His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman. So we have at the heart of the Arab world here on the western edge of Asia, and the anchor and the center of gravity of Africa on the western edge of Africa. Two economies with great set of resources, with visionary leadership on both sides, who are set on this very transformative set of reforms that are quite compatible but complementary in nature, that bode so much promise for not only our countries and our people, but indeed for our regions, as we set the role model and the example of how economic development, prosperity, and putting the interests of the people first is going to result in the future.
Other ministers and top business people on both sides highlighted areas of cooperation and investment, which will be led by the newly formed Saudi-Nigeria Business Council.
The message is one of mutual cooperation, collaboration, partnership to the benefit of all and for the benefit of the good peoples of both countries. And I think the overall inspiration were two stories. The story of Saudi Arabia since 2015 under the leadership of the Crown Prince, and of course, Nigeria since May 2023 under the leadership of Mr. President.
The biggest challenge has been the investment, because there has been traditionally a trust deficit between Nigeria and Saudi. The businessmen from both sides are not very comfortable with each other. But now you can see from all the discussions, so much can be done. You could see day before yesterday, a lot of agreements were signed with many countries. Saudi is ready to invest within the next 7 years up to $50 billion in Africa. And the bulk could come to Nigeria.
The Saudi-Nigeria Business Roundtable meeting, the culmination of the Saudi-Africa Summit here in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The next few months will determine the outcome of the meetings here, one of which is the Saudi-Nigeria Joint Business Council, which government ministers say will be a real good opportunity for both sides to tap into the advantages of their economies. From here in Saudi Arabia, Amarachi Ubani, Channels Television News.
Kenyans now have a special tree planting holiday to plant 100 million trees. It's all thanks to the government, whose goal is to plant 15 billion trees in the space of 10 years. Well, according to the Environment Minister, Sipan Natuya, the holiday allows each and every Kenyan to own the initiative by being encouraged to plant at least 2 seedlings, leading to 100 million target. About 150 million seedlings have been made available in public nurseries. President William Ruto is leading the exercise in the east of the country, and the cabinet ministers have been sent to their regions to lead the process alongside county governors. Kenyan journalist Sarus Sombati joins us now for more on this. Hello, Sarus, and thank you for joining us on Network Africa.
Good evening. How are you? How's Nigeria? We're okay in Nairobi.
Very well. Now, let's begin. Now, first, walk us through how the Kenyan government even plans to achieve this in the space of 10 years. I mean, we're talking about planting 15 billion trees.
Well, it's a national campaign which is ongoing actually, because the president himself is leading the exercise, and in every event that there's a public event, whenever there is in the country, everyone is encouraged to plant a tree. Even if it's a daily basis, everyone is encouraged to plant a tree as a way of achieving this agenda. So today it was declared a holiday whereby everyone was, most Kenyans were actually asked to participate in the exercise, and the target was 100 million trees today. We are waiting for the population to come out so that you can see how much was achieved, because it was in some areas it was so rainy, so it was not expected they would meet the target they had today.
And how does it feel to have a special holiday? I mean, just one day, just for the tree planting. How are Kenyans and even environment activists reacting to this holiday?
Well, it was a surprise when the government announced that it would be holiday today last week, because people thought it was a joke. But then it came out that it was discussed at the cabinet level, and it was agreed that there will be a holiday today to encourage people to plant trees, because it's raining heavily in Nairobi or both parts of the country, and it was meant to encourage more people to plant more trees today. So to say a little of it is that it was a bit of a mix of investment, because the seedlings were being provided for free of charge by the government, because the government was buying. Some people are donating those who had the seedlings. So the campaign gained momentum in a way, because the entire weekend was a campaign which was meant to encourage people to participate in the exercise.
All right, thank you very much. I guess it's all for the change, and positive one for that matter. Thanks to you, Sarus Sombati from Kenya, for your contribution on Network Africa.
Thank you so much.
To other stories now, the China Commodities Expo ended last week. The exhibition features a wide range of products from different sectors, including agriculture equipment, industrial machinery, building materials, power and renewable energy products, household products, electrical and electronics. The China Commodities exhibition has been held annually since 2007. It serves as a platform for China-Africa Economic and Trade Cooperation and Exchanges. By fostering partnerships and promoting international trade, the CCE contributes significantly to the development of the global business landscape. Well, according to Falashade Ambrose Medem, who's a Commissioner for Industry, Trade and Investment, Lagos State, the trade relationship between China and Nigeria is already improving.
Nigeria, with its vast resources and dynamic workforce, has always been a keen advocate of partnerships that drive sustainable growth. In the same spirit, the China Commodity Expo Nigeria is not just an expo, but a unique opportunity for both Nigerian and Chinese businesses to further explore, connect, and collaborate. Nigeria is China's second largest trading partner in Africa, and China is the largest source of imports. In 2021, Nigeria-China trade reached $25.68 billion, rising 33.3% year on year.
Extremely important, not for China, but also for Nigeria, because you know that Nigeria is our very important strategic partner, and this expo, I can see, is the biggest expo after COVID-19. So I think that there are so many Chinese and Nigerian enterprises can make a discussion, and maybe they can sign a lot of contract. So I hope that this expo can help strengthen China and Nigeria mutual cooperation and our bilateral relations.
And that's Network Africa for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. Have a wonderful day.